General Hospital spoilers tease that a whisper ripples through Port Charles as Drew Kane unleashes every resource at his disposal to unmask the person who slipped him a deadly dose of ketamine. Months of cryptic nightmares and sleepless nights have driven him to the brink, and now, with unrelenting determination, he has coaxed Jacinda back from obscurity. Housed in a discreet downtown hotel suite paid for by Drew himself, Jacinda, the woman whose loyalties were for sale, now finds herself at the eye of a gathering storm. Drew's fortune, amassed through tangled alliances and risky ventures, has always been his shield. When he learned that Nina Reeves had once bought Jacinda's silence with a fortune, orchestrating chaos in his life under the guise of hidden agendas, he vowed to outspend her at every turn. Now, Jacinda lives in a gilded cage of Drew's making, plush carpets, ornate drapes, and a hefty monthly stipend in exchange for her allegiance. She needs only one thing: money. And Drew ensures she can never again refuse his demands. In the dim light of her hotel room, Jacinda runs a trembling hand across the branded stationery of her latest payoff. She knows she has betrayed Nina before, sabotaging evidence, planting rumors, and tipping the scales of courtroom battles. Yet Drew's checks are larger, his threats more subtle but far more potent. With every dollar he deposits into her account, Jacinda feels Nina's hold slipping, and with it, the fear that once bound her to dirty dealings. She rises from the satin sheets, her reflection flickering in the mirror, once a willing pawn, now the queen on Drew Kane's chessboard. Beyond the hotel's thick walls, the contest for Willow Corinthos's children intensifies. Carly Spencer, ever the strategist, eyes the upcoming custody hearing with predatory focus. Drew's ketamine scandal, once a hushed rumor, has become her sharpest weapon. She intends to paint Willow's world with the same taint of illicit substances, arguing that any association with a tainted caregiver endangers the children's welfare. In her mind, Carly's children deserve stability free from scandal, and she will not hesitate to use Drew's reputation as leverage against Willow's maternal rights. But Drew's mind is not idle. He has wrested from his darkest memories a counterpunch: Michael Corinthos's prolonged absence. The younger Corinthos, scarred by horrific burns and the ensuing treatments, spent long months in treatment centers far from Port Charles. His absence in Willow's life, Drew plans to argue, has created a void in parental oversight, one that jeopardizes the children she claims to protect. In silent confidence, Drew and his legal counsel pore over affidavits detailing Michael's physical pain, the surgeries that kept him bedridden, and the hospitals that isolated him. Yet they worry. Will the judge accept a similar narrative of trauma as Drew's own? Or will the bench dismiss Michael's injuries as collateral damage in a grander tumult? The day of reckoning arrives in the packed courtroom of Judge Mulberry. Willow and Drew walk together down the corridor, elbows brushing with quiet solidarity. Jacinda waits outside the chamber doors, heart hammering. She knows that her presence here defies all prior plans. She was to remain in the shadows if Willow and Drew prevailed easily. But Carly's relentless onslaught, weaving whispers of ketamine-fueled recklessness, nearly tipped the scales in her favor. When Drew's counsel stumbled under cross-examination, Homer Sinclair, the wily judge's clerk, hinted at skepticism. In that moment, Drew reached his decision. Desperate times demanded that he call Jacinda to testify. Inside the courtroom, Carly stands alongside her attorney, projecting every shred of composure she can muster. Cameras lens into every flutter of her eyelid, every quiver of her conservatively clad hand. Carly's opening salvo is devastating. She lists each troubling detail of Drew's ketamine ordeal, painting him as a reckless threat to all children under his influence. The gallery murmurs. Willow's grip on the bench grows tighter, her knuckles turning white. Then the doors swing open. Jacinda enters, her posture hesitant but resolute. The hush that follows is deafening. All eyes pivot to her as she climbs the witness stand. Carly's victory lap shudders to an abrupt halt. Jacinda's voice, soft yet unwavering, fills the hall with the confession Drew has long sought. "I was paid by Nina Reeves," Jacinda begins, eyes locked on the judge, "to orchestrate complications for Drew. But it was all part of a bigger scheme, to turn the accusation of ketamine poisoning into a weapon. I was the instrument." Murmurs cascade through the courtroom. Carly's lips part in shock as Jacinda continues, each revelation cleaving the narrative in two. Jacinda recounts the night she slipped away from Nina's penthouse and planted false evidence, then the subsequent calls Nina's voice, cold and clipped, instructing her every move. The prosecution's files, once thought ironclad, fall apart under Jacinda's candor. When she describes Drew's sleepless agony after the poisoning, the jury sees past the scandal, witnessing a man forced to overcome near death. As Jacinda steps down, Drew exhales a breath he never knew he held. The courtroom's energy shifts palpably. Whispers of betrayal surround Nina Reeves. Questions arise about her motives to wield such power against Drew. Carly's advantage dissolves like ink in rainwater. Yet the verdict still hangs in balance. Drew's gambit has neutralized the ketamine scandal, but the judge must decide, does Michael's absence, his months of surgeries and solitary recovery counterbalance Jacinda's revelations? Willow's tear-streaked gaze meets Drew's across the room. He offers a slight nod, a promise of unwavering partnership. When Judge Mulberry calls the court to order for closing arguments, the atmosphere is taut with suspense. Carly argues one last time for the children's safety and stability. Drew and Willow rise, their voices harmonizing into a testament of shared pain and enduring love. In those final moments, the silence in the courtroom was so complete it felt as if the very walls held their breath. Judge Mulberry leaned forward, his gray eyes reflecting years of tempered judgment. He tapped his gavel lightly, then spoke. The words that followed would reshape destinies. Having considered the evidence, testimony, and, most importantly, the welfare of the children, he began, pausing as everyone leaned in. This court finds that joint custody under the guidance of both parents serves the best interests of the minors. A collective exhale rippled through the chamber. Willow's shoulders slumped with relief, Drew's fist clenched in quiet triumph. Carly pressed her fingers to her lips, masking disappointment as she turned her gaze skyward in silent prayer for her own redemption. Outside the courtroom, Port Charles erupted into a whirl of emotions. Reporters clamored at the courthouse steps, cameras flashing as Willow and Drew emerged hand in hand. Jacinda waited nearby, wrapped in a soft gray coat, tears of relief and guilt mingling on her cheeks. Willow hurried to her, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "You did the right thing," Willow whispered, voice thick with gratitude. Jacinda nodded, the weight of her betrayals lifting with each breath. Meanwhile, Carly retreated to Kelly's pub, seeking solace in the murmur of neon lights and the clink of glassware. Jocelyn Jacks joined her, offering a sympathetic arm. "You fought well," Jocelyn reminded her, refilling her water glass. Carly's gaze drifted to the dartboard behind the bar, symbols of victories and near misses. "Sometimes," she said softly, "winning the battle doesn't mean winning the war." At the Quartermain Spencer Clinic, Drew and Willow held a small gathering to celebrate their victory. Maxie Jones arrived with a platter of cupcakes, Curtis Ashford brought a homemade pie, and Lulu Spencer toasted with sparkling apple cider. Children's laughter filled the hallway as the newly reunited family shared stories of fear, hope, and perseverance. Drew pulled Willow aside, wrapping her in a tight embrace. "We did it," he murmured. "Together." Willow nodded, pressing her cheek to his chest, the echo of the judge's ruling still warm in her mind. That evening, as the sun dipped below Port Charles's skyline, Willow tracked Michael's progress at the hospital. Though still healing, Michael's resilience had become a beacon of strength for them all. She stroked his hair gently, his bed adorned with get-well-soon cards, and promised herself she would protect her family from further storms. Late into the night, Drew walked the hospital corridors alone, reflecting on how far he'd come from the man who lay unconscious after the ketamine attack. He paused under the soft glow of the hallway lamp outside Nina Reeves's office. Though they'd been adversaries, he recognized the complexity of their past alliance and her part, willing or unwilling, in the poisoning plot. With a slow exhale, he resolved that some debts must remain unsettled, not for vengeance, but as reminders of the fragile line between ally and enemy. In the days that followed, life in Port Charles began to settle into a new rhythm. Willow and Drew's children thrived under joint custody, their laughter echoing across both households. Jacinda found a new calling as an advocate for survivors of coercion, working alongside Charlotte Cassadine to establish a community resource center. Carly, buoyed by her own near miss, redoubled her efforts in legal aid for families, forging an unexpected friendship with Willow as they collaborated on reforming custody laws. And somewhere in the quieter corners of the city, amid the scent of jasmine in patient rooms and the hum of traffic at dawn, the echoes of the ketamine scandal faded into memory. In their place stood a community tempered by truth and resilience, bound together by the understanding that redemption often arises from the darkest betrayals. And for Drew, Willow, and their allies, the final lesson of this harrowing chapter lay not in the courtroom's decree, but in the unbreakable bonds they forged in its wake.